Long-distance relationships don't fail because of distance. They fail because of behavior, mindset, emotional habits, and unrealistic expectations that people bring into them. Most people think distance is the problem. They believe if two people truly love each other, distance shouldn't matter at all. But that idea is only partially true. Love alone is not enough to make long distance work. Because long distance is not just about love, it is about emotional discipline, communication patterns, trust systems, and psychological stability. And this is where most relationships break. At the beginning, long distance feels exciting. There is emotional intensity, constant messaging, deep conversations, missing each other, and strong emotional attachment. Everything feels meaningful. Every message feels special. Every call feels important. But over time, reality slowly changes. The excitement reduces, routines become repetitive, emotional gaps appear, misunderstandings increase, and distance starts feeling heavier than love. And then people start blaming distance. But distance is not the real problem. Distance only amplifies what already exists inside the relationship. If trust is weak, distance makes it weaker. If communication is poor, distance makes it worse. If emotional maturity is low, distance exposes it. And if attachment is unhealthy, distance intensifies it. So the real question is not, can long distance work? The real question is, what do you need to do for it to work? Because long distance does work, but only under specific emotional conditions. Let's go deeper. The first and most important requirement for a successful long distance relationship is emotional security. Without emotional security, distance becomes emotional chaos. Emotional security means both partners feel safe in the relationship without needing constant reassurance. It means there is trust even when communication is not happening every moment. It means absence does not automatically create fear. Most long-distance relationships fail because insecurity grows silently. One person starts overthinking messages. The other starts feeling pressured. Small delays in replies turn into emotional assumptions. Silence becomes suspicion. And slowly, the relationship becomes a source of anxiety instead of comfort. But emotional security changes everything. When both people feel secure, distance becomes manageable. There is trust in silence. There is understanding in gaps. And there is peace even without constant communication. Now let's understand something very important. Communication is not about frequency. It is about quality. Many people believe that long-distance couples must talk all the time. They think more communication equals stronger connection. But in reality, too much forced communication creates emotional pressure. When communication becomes an obligation instead of a choice, it loses meaning. What actually matters is meaningful communication, conversations that create emotional connection, not just presence. Conversations where both people are emotionally engaged, not just passing time. Conversations that create understanding, not dependency. For example, instead of talking just to fill silence, talking about emotions, experiences, thoughts, and life updates with intention creates deeper bonding. Because emotional intimacy is built through understanding, not constant availability. Now let's talk about trust, because this is the backbone of long-distance relationships. Trust is not built by words. It is built by consistency. When someone repeatedly shows up in a reliable way, trust strengthens. When behavior is unpredictable, trust weakens. In long distance, trust is tested more because physical presence is missing. So imagination fills the gaps. And when imagination is not guided by reality, it often creates fear. People start imagining worst-case scenarios. They start questioning loyalty without evidence. They start interpreting normal situations as threats, and slowly, trust becomes fragile. But trust is not about eliminating fear completely. It is about choosing belief over fear repeatedly. It is about understanding your partner's patterns instead of assuming intentions. It is about communicating doubts instead of building silent anxiety. Now let's go deeper into emotional independence. One of the biggest reasons long-distance relationships fail is emotional dependency. When one person becomes the only source of happiness, attention, or emotional stability, distance becomes unbearable. Because now every moment without them feels empty. Every delay feels painful. Every silence feels like disconnection. But healthy long-distance relationships require emotional balance. Both individuals should have their own lives, routines, goals, friendships, and emotional stability outside the relationship. Because when your entire emotional world depends on one person, distance becomes emotionally overwhelming. Emotional independence does not mean lack of love. It means balance. It means love exists alongside personal growth, not instead of it. Now let's talk about expectations. Unrealistic expectations destroy more long distance relationships than anything else. People expect constant attention, immediate replies, emotional perfection, and always available partners. But this is not realistic. Life is busy, time zones differ, work, studies, stress, and personal life affect availability. And when expectations are not aligned with reality, disappointment becomes constant. Healthy long distance relationships are built on realistic expectations, understanding that communication will vary, understanding that people will have their own responsibilities, understanding that emotional connection does not require constant presence. Now let's talk about emotional imagination. In long distance, imagination plays a huge role. When you don't physically see someone, your mind fills in the gaps. Sometimes this imagination strengthens love, but sometimes it creates insecurity. If you don't understand this, you can easily misinterpret situations. A simple delay in response can become a story in your mind. A normal interaction can become suspicion. An emotional imagination becomes emotional stress. That is why awareness is important. You need to constantly differentiate between what is real and what your mind is creating. Now let's talk about time management in long distance. Time is not about quantity, it is about intention. Even short conversations can create strong connection if they are emotionally meaningful. And long conversations can feel empty if they lack emotional depth. So instead of focusing on how long you talk, focus on how present you are during the conversation. Distraction kills emotional connection faster than distance. Now let's go deeper into emotional reassurance. Reassurance is important in long-distance relationships, but excessive reassurance seeking becomes unhealthy. Constantly asking, "Do you love me?" or "Are you still there?" creates emotional pressure. Healthy reassurance comes through behavior, not constant questioning. When actions are consistent, reassurance becomes natural. Now let's talk about conflict in long distance. Arguments in long distance feel different because they lack physical presence. Misunderstandings can escalate quickly because tone and body language are missing. That is why communication during conflict must be more careful, not more emotional. Instead of reacting immediately, pausing and clarifying intent is important. Many long-distance conflicts are not real problems. They are misinterpretations. Now let's understand emotional connection. Emotional connection in long distance is not built through physical presence. It is built through emotional consistency. Feeling understood, feeling valued, and feeling emotionally safe are more important than physical closeness. When emotional connection is strong, distance feels smaller. When emotional connection is weak, distance feels infinite. Now let's talk about commitment. Commitment in long distance is different because it is not tested by physical availability, but by emotional discipline. It is about choosing the relationship even when it is inconvenient. It is about staying emotionally present even when physically distant. But commitment alone is not enough. It must be supported by emotional maturity from both sides. Now let's come to the most important realization. Long distance works when both people are emotionally stable, realistically aligned, and mutually invested in building connection through communication, trust, and understanding. But it fails when it is based only on feelings without structure. Because love alone is emotion. But long distance requires structure. Structure in communication, structure in trust, structure in expectations, structure in emotional balance. Without structure, distance becomes pressure. Now let's talk about healing long-distance struggles. If a long-distance relationship is already struggling, the solution is not more emotional pressure. The solution is more clarity. Honest conversations about expectations, honest discussions about needs, honest alignment of emotional patterns. Because confusion is what destroys long distance, not distance itself. Now let's end with the most important truth. Long distance is not easy, but it is not impossible either. It requires awareness, patience, emotional control, and understanding. And most importantly, it requires two people who are not just in love, but emotionally mature enough to protect that love across distance. Because when done right, long distance does not weaken connection, it strengthens it.